Hello, I'm Peter Bell, and I'm here with Mr. Mark Selby, CEO of Canadian Nickel. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Peter, how are you?
Tell me again, what's the name of the company?
Yeah, Canada Nickel Company with the ticker CNC, and we've just started trading this week on the Venture Exchange.
Thank you very much. It's February 28th, and the stock started trading on February 27th. Since then, it's traded up. There's been fairly little on the offer. It's had a halt, and now there's been a major news release here on Friday afternoon announcing a maiden resource and drilling highlights. What a debut.
Yeah, no, we've been working towards getting this initial resource out. So, even though we just started trading publicly, we've been busy drilling this off since September. And so again, a deposit, we only had a couple of drill holes that were the discovery drill holes in September 2018. I'm very proud of our team, to take it from those first few initial drill holes to a maiden resource that's the 11th largest nickel sulfide resource in the world today. And so it's 900 million tons at 0.25. 2/3 of that is in a measured and indicated category. And most importantly, the thing that I'm most excited about is that, there's a very contiguous set of higher grade core through the ore body. So if you look at the release we just put out, you can see a grade shell of above a 0.3 cutoff, where we've got 98 million tons at 0.34% nickel. My previous life was with RNC Minerals, advancing Dumont. Dumont's a 0.27% ore body. So, the economics for that, were documented in their feasibility study. The fact that, we've got a large continuous, chunk of ore that we can, hopefully will be the first few years of a mining plan. It will, really help the economics for the project going forward. Most importantly, it's open in pretty much every direction. We've come up with the 11th largest resource on just less than 20% of the overall structure. And there's lots of, the geophysics have pointed us to a bunch of other great targets to start drilling, which we'll be able to start drilling now that we've got this initial resource going.
Amazing to think about your history and the project history, all the different things going on here, and again, to compare it to Dumont and the timelines that went into the exploration work and the resource estimates for that project and that public company, and to contrast that with a new entity here that's just screaming out the gate with some firm numbers here in the first days of trading. Amazing. And maybe I'd ask about Noble Minerals and Albert Mining as well, a little bit in the background.
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, I think the transaction was basically the deposit was initially a joint venture between several groups. They saw the benefit and say, let's get this asset into a wholly owned standalone company. And so we work with the team there to be able to pull this transaction together. The thing with Noble is that, the Project 81, you've got, a huge land package that, because, it was owned for quite a period of time by a forestry company that, was not, as they were going in and out of bankruptcy, did not spend a lot of time joint venturing this property with mining companies. So, Vance and the team at Noble realized that, hey, this is one of the probably one of the most underexplored pieces of land in Ontario close to infrastructure. So, Vance and Randy picked it up. And so, I think this is the first of, hopefully, many discoveries on this property as they now start to unlock not just the nickel potential, but the VMS potential and the gold potential going forward.
A credit to Canadian mining all around. And you mentioned 20% having been explored by Canada Nickel. Is that 20% of this target area or the project area?
Yeah, that's the target area. The nice thing with these deposits, and again, what I learned going through 7 years at Dumont, is that the geophysics really gives you. In some deposits, not always that helpful, but in this kind of deposit, it's very helpful on multiple fronts. And so the geophysical signature, which we think is going to be mineralized ultramafic, is 8 kilometers or so in strike length. We've drilled off just over 1.5 kilometers, of that so far. But the same, good geophysical signature that we've seen in the best part of what we've drilled to date at Crawford, it shows up in multiple places in the structure. So fingers crossed, as we start to step out some of the drilling now, we're going to find some more, high grade material.
And I was flipping through the company presentation, and I noticed on one of the last slides mention of accelerating the timeline for MET testing.
Yeah.
And any comments on that?
Sure. No, I think one thing that, investors, not just at Crawford, but just generally looking at, because again, the in the copper space, most of the large, great copper projects now are between 0.3 and 0.5% copper. The reality in the nickel space is outside of Indonesia, it's going to be large, lower grade nickel deposits that are going to provide the bulk of the resource going forward. And what I would, what's key with these deposits is the nickel's there, but you need to make sure it's in minerals that you can recover. So, the drilling that we've done has been very important, but I've already got multiple labs working on doing the mineralogical samples to make sure that the nickel is in minerals that we can recover into concentrate. So, over the next few weeks here, we're going to start releasing some of that information. Again, given what I saw already, I'm confident that, the mineralogy is going to come out okay because, for two things. One, there are parts of the ore body that have lots of sulfur. And nickel sticks to sulfur preferentially to iron. And so, if the sulfur's there in these types of ore bodies, there's a good chance there's an atom of nickel stuck to it. And secondly, the process that converts the nickel into a mineral that's recoverable also releases magnetite. So you can use, how intensely magnetic something is as a guide to sort of how far that process went and how far it may have gone down the path to create recoverable nickel minerals. So, we're in great shape, I think, and so again, we can't wait. You have to wait and see what the test results come, but that'll be coming over the next 6 weeks here.
Wonderful. Nice to hear about the exploration playbook and the plan of attack. And I haven't heard you say the word development, but it's clearly in the offing there.
Yeah, no, we're going to go with this initial, the scale of the resource right now we have can support a multi-decade operation as is, and again, just on less than 20%. We're going to continue to explore to find, some other higher grade targets, but we're not going to sit here and just take shareholders' money and go drill forever and ever and ever. With what we have right now, we're going to move right into doing a PEA on that piece of it. Again, we're going to focus on picking some other stuff up over the next couple of months. But again, there's similarities geologically, mineralogically, terrain-wise, and infrastructure-wise to Dumont. So all the engineering work and the team that we used at Dumont, we can leverage that experience to quickly advance this project. So our target is to have a PEA done by next fall, and then be able to roll right into a feasibility study with a target of having that done by the end of 2021. Hopefully, in time for catching the sort of what I think the first wave of what will be a nickel super cycle, that tends to happen every 15 to 20 years.
Appreciate you talking about super cycles as well. Maybe an esoteric or controversial term for some people in markets, but the crux interview there that you did earlier last year in 2019, full of valuable insights about nickel and markets in general and commodity markets and the cycles that we get in commodity markets and the underinvestment in supply that creates these tightnesses and price spikes and the windfall opportunities here. You're positioning yourself to really exploit. Wonderful.
Yeah, no, when I joined RNC in 2010, I did that because, we as a team believed that, the project cupboard got cleaned out in the mid-2000s with the big price spike at that time. And there's really very few projects outside of Indonesia that are ready to be developed. Nickel has always been a high-growth metal and will continue to be a high-growth metal. The EV story just provides a whole new other source of demand going forward. So, we knew that nickel pig iron we had to sort of get through that for 4 or 5 years. I'm going to go through some pain. It was a little more painful than we thought it was going to be. But, the contrast now is I spent 7 years promoting and advancing a nickel project, and we got it done in a market where, not many major mining companies or a lot of investors were interested in nickel. Today, just last week you had the BHP CEO, Mike Henry, saying we need more future-facing metals, we need more nickel, we need more copper. We're here at the Red Cloud event. Robert Friedland was talking at lunch today, talking about, how essential nickel is. It's the gasoline in the EV revolution. So, already we've seen some interest from some very large mining companies, and I think, going forward here as we demonstrate the scale potential of this asset and then the economics around this asset, I think it's going to be a very exciting, very fun couple of years.
Again, thinking about how far you went with the wind in your face, and now to think about the wind at your back, amazing, wonderful. Congratulations on all this success so far, but really, the work is just beginning in a lot of ways. We've talked about some of the important stuff ahead. Maybe I'd just ask about a few of the diagrams in
Sure.
the news release today. So there's one that has a fairly vertical hole that's testing one of these mag highs at depth.
Yeah. So the thing with these deposits is they're actually, we believe in placed horizontally, and then they get tipped up. What was really interesting is with the 3D mag, we saw this mag anomaly that went down a kilometer, and we could see from the first few drill holes that there was some higher grade around that mag high. So again, there's been more than a few mining companies spend a lot of time drilling around one piece, and that turned out, the best part's over here. So just to make sure that we weren't missing out on the absolute best part of it, we drilled a drill hole right through the heart of it. Again, we didn't find anything that was much higher grade than what we're drilling, but we hit 900 meters of 0.31% nickel. There was only one assay in the entire 900 meters that was not mineralized. So there was no dikes, there was no other sort of disruption in the mineralization. So again, the scale of what we have here is really, really amazing. I mean, that basically went another couple hundred meters below where the resource estimate is sitting today. And the other part that's interesting is the shape of the ultramafic, the shape of the mag, which is the shape of the ultramafic, actually bows out as you gets bigger as you go deeper, which will be very helpful from a strip ratio perspective. So that was a pretty exciting hole that we drilled, and we've been waiting to go public to be able to release it. So
Well, and I recall studying the presentation deck and looking at some of these cross sections that show, a high grade hit here and then a high grade hit in another hole that they seem to be kind of vertically aligned. And I'd posted online, like, what's going on? What is the orientation of the high grade here? So to hear you say that you drilled down vertically down the throat of it, well done. Thank you for doing that. Some geologists might resist that. The holes should be perpendicular. Okay, great, fine, thank you. But at this point, it's a promotional story. You really have to get the market excited about what you have here, and that kind of work shows that you understand how to do that. So.
Yeah, no, and again, in terms of really understanding the dimensions of the ore body, because again, we just want to see sort of what's there, and in that center axis, through the ore body is going to be the center of the pit. So we know that pit bottom can drop quite a bit. So let's figure out what's there before we spend much time drilling elsewhere.
Exceptional. I've seen cases before where people have waited until, hole 150 or 180 to drill those vertical holes down the throat, and then they find some really nice high grade. But by that point, nobody really cares anymore, I'm afraid to say.
Oh, yeah, no, and that's the key part here is, the thing I think I'm most proud of what we've done and what we've done as a team with Steve, as our VPX, and Bill and John and Timmins is, we've again, drilled off the 11th largest nickel sulfide reserve on basically a few $1 million worth of drilling. It's basically a discovery cost of about $1 per ton. There are a lot of sulfide projects, and there are some publicly traded ones, which I won't name publicly, that have spent, thousands of dollars for, per ton for much less resource than we have today. So, that's the part that to me I think is very exciting. I mean, at the end of the day, I have a massive chunk of my net worth in this company, and I want to make sure we use that capital most effectively going forward.
And the amount of money post-IPO that will still be in Treasury, do we have a sense?
Yeah, so again, the now $6.8 million that we raised, $2 million went out the door to get the transaction done. And so right now we're sitting at about $1 million and a half. We will be coming back to market towards the end of March to be able to fund that PEA to do the next phase of exploration and to get that PEA done by next fall.
Good. Hammer down. This is the nature of junior mining, isn't it? And maybe to ask as well, these other 11 nickel sulfide projects,
Yep.
and the word developability or mineability,
Yep.
it's pretty hard to go through line by line and compare them in depth, but it seems like where you are in Ontario is a world-class mining location.
Yeah, no, I think that's I think too many people get caught up in grade, and at the end, again, I've run a mine in Australia. I know, it's when you're spending $80 or $100 per ton mining costs, it's like you need 2% grade nickel, you need several gram per ton gold just to basically meet the mining cost before you start making, any contribution toward the milling and the profit. So, being in a location where we are in Timmins, close to all that infrastructure, you've got a supportive community that likes mining. You've got an excellent First Nations group, that's very commercial and realizes the cost benefit to the resource development in the area. And we've got a good relationship already, with the Waban First Nation. That's there. And so, those aspects of a project, again, I would encourage people to spend way more time looking at that. Because again, if you've got 10% nickel or 4% copper, in a 2-meter vein on the top of a mountain, it's like, yes, it's sexy. The core looks great. But in terms of, whether you can develop it or not, that's what's key. I mean, I carried around a box of rocks that were 28% gold from Beta Hunt.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, right now, would I rather carry around a piece of core of 0.3% nickel from that 900-meter hole,
Oh, yeah.
or that gold rock in terms of actually creating value for shareholders?
Yeah.
That big gold, that nickel core is I think going to be very, very valuable going forward.
And thinking about the exploration question again, and Windfall Geotech, and Cards, and the fact that you've tested one of their target areas.
Yep.
And the question then becomes, does that help them refine their targeting for the next round?
Oh, big time. I mean, the great thing, AI is really around, an approach of taking the data you have and taking your best interpretation based on that data. The more data you feed the model, the better answers you're going to get, and the more targets you're going to generate. So again, I think again as we go forward, and we've got an opportunity now, that we've proved out the scale of the resource on one small piece of it, is to start to step out and look at some of the other opportunities, in the area. Using the best targeting that's out there, and so they were a critical piece of helping to unlock the now, which is now turned into a massive nickel deposit.
Yeah. And holes that you might have drilled that missed, or areas where you found the edge. You mentioned that it was open in all directions. So.
Yeah. No. It's basically. We have one hole that goes deep, and it was still a mineralization when it stopped. Again, I would point to in this release, if you go to hole 22, that's the westernmost hole. It's actually in an area that's is a lower mag, and what was surprising to us was, again, there was a nice high grade, high nickel, high sulfur section in there, and so. Again, I thought, given the mag was lower, that it might not be that well mineralized, but again, it continued that way. So, you see this great big opening that's not mineralized in the middle of the two mag highs. So, who knows what we'll find, as we step out on the drilling there. It's, as Crawford's the gift that keeps on giving. So,
well, the best projects get better the more you work them too, right? And that hole 19, pointing off to the southwest, and it seems like the nearby hole 16 has a similar high-grade intercept in a similar area. We're looking at a plan view, at this point, but I wonder, you mentioned the vertical orientation of the higher-grade sections. I wonder the horizontal continuity at strike at surface.
Yeah, no, I mean, the high grade is surface and the easternmost edge, and then sort of plunges slowly as you move westward. But again, I've been blown away as we go west. There's several kilometers to go west. On the east side, there's a fault that's there, and then if you notice in the graphics, you'll see sort of a large horizontal anomaly that's there. That we think that's the faulted off extension of that main anomaly. So, we're, again, given the geophysics, it looks like, what we have in the main ore body should continue there. Again, we'll tell when we drill it. But again, I think we're just partway into something that can be very, potentially very, very large.
And the street has some interest in it. Any comments on, some of the bigger entities out there in the world of nickel?
Oh no, I think to me what was encouraging very early days was I was in London for 1-to-1, and I got a meeting. There's the 1-to-1. It gives you an email that says, "Oh, the meeting planner's open," and literally the first 2 emails that came up for meetings were Rio Tinto and China Moly. So, again, those were just initial meetings. It's early days, but again, it shows what the level of interest from the majors in nickel that did not, and I can tell from experience, that did not exist, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So, again, and if the BHP CEO said we need more nickel, I can assure you that, the Anglo CEO, the Rio CEO, all the large mining CEOs are thinking about, we need to find a way to get exposure to nickel, and hopefully, Crawford will be that for one of them. So.
Canada Nickel Company, CNC, on the TSX Venture. Mr. Mark Selby, President and CEO. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Peter, and have a good day.
Bye.